AgriTraining. We've had Matt Jones on Sarah's Country in the past, and absolutely passionately, off their own back, have been providing incredible agri-training to those coming into our sector. And as we know, we have a labour shortage in our industry, and yet we have growing numbers of unemployed off the back of the COVID pandemic. And this free training has got many success stories, and they've provided the wonderful Mark Harnden, who joins us now. Good evening, Mark. How are you? Can you hear me?
Sarah, thanks for inviting me on. Nice to be here.
Thank you so much. Mark, for those of us listening from the Northern Hemisphere, can you clarify exactly where that wonderful accent is from?
Yeah, I'm from Scotland. Yeah, there'll be a little bit of a delay on the line here because I'm in Springfield. We're away out near the mountains, so it's taken a while to get down to you.
Oh, you're
I'm
not
from Scotland, Edinburgh.
Oh, fantastic. Absolutely. So how long have you been in New Zealand, Mark?
Been here for 16 years. We came in 2004.
And I've just opened up your wonderful CV here. You've done a huge amount of things across the spectrum in regards to jet boat tours and being a skipper and crew. How did you find yourself in a predicament with employment and lead you to agri-training?
Well, it was a familiar story, unfortunately, this year in that COVID-19 decimated my industry. I was a captain on a seismic survey vessel, seismic survey company out of Norway, and unfortunately the COVID-19 pandemic caused the price of oil and gas to fall dramatically, so made crew changes impossible, so we couldn't go anywhere around the world to join our ships. So all the company ships are now currently laid up and have been for over 6-7 months now. So I was laid off, and not being a youngster, it's kind of difficult to get into a new industry at sea because they're all looking for younger people to train up through the ranks. Seismic survey is a very specialized industry. So yeah, I ended up without a job, and I think it was on Facebook, something popped up in front of me and said, you fancy doing agriculture? So I thought, well, that's not going to go away. We're always going to feed the world from New Zealand. And so I jumped in.
Where were your family based in New Zealand at the time?
We were here in Springfield, so we haven't had to move. I did the AgriTraining Foundation. I did the webinar first, which was a 4-day 4-hour webinar each day, which was a real good insight into what was available and, just a little bit of a taster about what the agriculture industry is. And I think it's a little bit like seafaring. Seafaring, people know there's ships out there, but they're not really very sure what they do. And it's a little bit the same as agriculture. We all know there's farms out there, but we really know very little about the work and what goes on them. And so I was lucky enough to be chosen from the webinar to move into the 2-week intensive foundation course in Winchmore, which was amazing. It really was amazing.
That's really fascinating in terms of, and absolutely, you're so right. It's like so many other industries that I am not in every single day. I mean, I've just been fitting out an office, Mark, and dealing with subcontractors in the building industry. Oh my goodness, it's a whole foreign world to me. But in particular, with that taster course, what did you take away from that webinar, 4 days, 4 hours a day, that made you go, wow, this industry is a lot more to it and than I thought, and your preconceived ideas?
Yeah, it was a really a real eye opener for me, and I think everybody else that was on the webinar as well. It was a huge range of people were there talking to us and giving us some insights into farming in general, not just dairy. There was sheep and deer and arable, pigs, honeybees. There was all sorts of things, and the main thing for me was that it's longevity. You go into agriculture, and I think from the people that were talking to us, people have been there for 30, 40 years. Ever since they were kids, they went straight onto farms and worked their whole lives. And, to get an opportunity to get in and join that at my age, I'm 60. So to get an opportunity to get in there and join that seemed too good to pass up. And, I like to think I made a reasonable impression, and I got chosen to go on to Winchmore.
And so when you went into that 2 weeks, what was that next step to have that foundation skill set to lead you into your new role?
Yeah, it was really, really important. The guys at Winchmore and AgriTraining did an amazing job. They set up all kinds of visits for us to go around to different kinds of farms, from, beef farming, sheep farming, deer up in the high country, dairy farming, of course. We even won a sheep milking farm, which I believe is the only one in the South Island. I think there's some up north there. Fascinating stuff. And, by the end of the first week, I wanted to be a dairy farmer, a deer farmer, a honeybee keeper, a pig farmer. I wanted to do the whole lot. It was all so exciting. But, I went in with a health and safety background from being at sea. Our health and safety at sea was very, very intense. And so I always had that in mind. And going into the agriculture, into the foundation course, I realized that health and safety is quite an important part of the whole thing. So I was, I sort of made that known. And, before the 2 week was up, I had an interview with compliance partners down in Christchurch. They're based in Christchurch and Timaru and Ashburton. And I was offered a job in health and safety, and we deal with loads and loads of farms in compliance partners. So it was an ideal fit for me. It was really perfect.
Oh, they would have loved seeing you coming because, of course, it's a rising part of our industry, and more so your skill sets would be fantastic to have on board. So a wonderful story. I would love to go back through. I'd love to come up the Waimakariri River with you by the looks of your skill sets. Throwing a jet boat around is one of them. But tell us about, sorry, this is irrelevant, but it's fantastic. It's not often you look at someone's CV and they used to be a presenter on BBC and an antiques-based TV show.
Yeah, yeah, that's a little bit different, a little bit out there. Well, that came about because I was an auctioneer in Scotland for a long time. I had my own auction company, and we were selling all sorts of stuff, antiques included. And the only program on the telly at the time to do with antiques was Antiques Roadshow, and there was another one called Bargain Hunt. And I made a little demo video with a company out of London. I made a little demo of me being an auctioneer and how it was easy to do and furnish your house for next to nothing, that sort of thing. And the demo video went around a few different places, and it landed on the right desk on the right day when the presenter from Bargain Hunt, David Dickinson, decided that he was not going to do the new Flog It program called Flog It. And the producers phoned me up and said, "Can you be in Bristol tomorrow?" So I said, okay. And I jumped on a plane and went down, and they interviewed me, and they said, "Right, you got the job." And so I presented the first 5 episodes of Flog It on BBC Two.
I've just had a question come in here from one of our regular viewers, saying that my question earlier was too challenging. So I'm just going to change that for the rest of the show. And I would love to know from our viewers and from you, what is the most interesting antique you've ever had in your hands?
Wow, that's a good one. The most interesting one, I tell you, we dealt with a lot of different companies, and Pickford's was one of them. It's a huge removals company worldwide, and they have storage facilities all over the world. And one day, quite early on in my auctioneering career, they brought in an old captain's trunk. It's called a Saratoga trunk. It's the one with a little domed top, and it's got like wooden straps across the top and round the sides. Really old-fashioned Victorian trunk. And we thought, oh, nice trunk. But I opened it up, and inside it was all the belongings of somebody who had done the Grand Tour. Back in Victorian times in the 1850s and 1860s, the young, well-to-do women, particularly, would go on the Grand Tour around Europe on horseback and in carriages, and they would draw and do art and have all fancy clothes and do embroidery, and they would take their whole wardrobe with them. And that's what was in the Saratoga trunk. It was an absolutely fascinating snapshot of life 150 years ago, from dresses and underwear to jewellery, and there was 30 or 40 watercolours, and it was just fascinating, really fascinating.
Imagine loading that onto Boeing going across the world today. How absolutely fascinating. Mark, thank you so much for joining us. It is fantastic to see our industry through your lens, and we're so excited that you are a part of the primary sector. So welcome on behalf of myself and all the listeners and viewers on Serious Country, and all the great the work that the team at AgriTraining are doing off their bat to bring people into this industry in what is an approachable way. So I really appreciate your time. That's Mark Harnden there, who's been through the AgriTraining employment webinar, as he said, and then of course going on to that foundation course.
This is Serious Country.